All right, we're back. It's COMP125, Lesson 1, Part 4 of the summer 2016 semester of our broadcast. Yeah. And we were just talking about immediately invoked function expressions and how to make random numbers and a bunch of other weird things. But we need to really fix what we need to do for your labs. Let's focus on that now, right? So last time I went up to GitHub, right? And I went to Centennial College, which is in my link. So if we go to Centennial College, there it is. Notice that I have a link, COMP123, COMP125, a bunch of other ones. Let's go to COMP125 Lesson 1 and see what I got here. I got a bunch of things that look like this, right? Well, let's suppose you didn't do this right, and somehow you added a README file by accident. I don't know, I didn't tell you to add a README file, but some of you have. Don't do that. Just add in the file by itself. But let's say you made a mistake. How do I fix it? Well, you can't, right? You got to kill your repository. That's the simplest way, and do it again. Let's do it again. So I'm going to kill my repository now and make another one, just like we did last time. And I'll kill my repository locally as well, and I'll make another one too, just to start over again, okay? So this is what I'm going to do. I need to kill this one. I'm going to copy the name of this. I'm going to go to Settings. This is how you kill a repository up on GitHub, right? And I go all the way down where it says Danger Zone, right? Click on Delete this repository, and then put in the name, copy the name in there, oops, of my repository, COMP125 Lesson 1, and delete. Right, now it's gone. Oh, I don't need this right now. Okay, cool, so that's gone. And if I search for it, if I look at, Centennial College now, if I go there and try and look for it again, you can see that it's no longer there. It's not in my list, right? So that repository is gone. Well, I got a problem, right? Because this one is linked to my repository, and I did that locally here. So here's the Visual Studio way of doing it. Sorry, Visual Studio Code way of doing it, and then I'll do the Visual Studio way. All right, so here it is. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to open up in Terminal or on Command Prompt. Now, the problem with some of you, because you're using the machine in front of you, the computer, is that it doesn't have Git installed in the terminal or the Command Prompt. It doesn't work. So you won't be able to do this. And I'm going to show you the Windows version in a second. Let's do this first piece like this. Well, one thing is I know that there's a .git folder that's invisible, right, on the Mac. So if you're on a Mac or Linux machine, you have to get rid of your folder again to reinitialize your GitHub. And this is the way you do it. By the way, this is very dangerous, so don't do like rm -rf ***, and then you delete your whole system, right? I won't say it too slowly, because if I say it slowly, someone will do it, right? So rm -rf means remove, recursively, force. That's what it means, right? And I want to do .git. So I want to remove my .git folder. What this does on a Mac or Linux system is it gets rid of my Git folder. My .git folder is destroyed. It's gone. There is no more repository. Let's do it again. So I'll say git init, just like we did last time. That's the first command. We initialize the repository, and then we'll say git add dot. That's the second piece. We add everything to the staging area, right? Which is what I'm doing with Git. I'm saying take all my files right now and add them to the staging area. And then the third time is git commit -m, and I'm going to name my commit initial commit. Hey, here's my initial commit. Okay. So those are the 3 steps you need to do locally. Now I need to do something remotely. I don't have a repository. Let's make one. So I'll click on the plus sign here. I go to new repository. I'm going to go to Centennial College, and I'm going to create this new repository called COMP125 Lesson 1, and I'll say. And we'll make this VS Code. So I know this is the VS Code version of my repository. I'll do another one with Visual Studio, and so that you won't be confused, right? So this is it. So I'm going to make a new repository with VS Code, Visual Studio Code, and click Create Repository. It gives me some instructions when I do this. It says, hey, take these, to add a remote, I have to type this command. Look, it even tells you the commands to type, git init, git. I don't want to read me file, so I didn't add this part. Git commit -m, all this kind of stuff. And then it tells me what to do if I want to start off a repository. But what I want to do is take these last 2 lines, git remote add origin, with the URI. I'm going to take these last 2 lines, copy them, go back to my terminal. By the way, this works for Windows too, and paste, and press enter. When I do that, because my Git recognizes who I am, it's going to push everything up to GitHub in this way. Now, in your case, you might be asked for a username and password, right? Because we haven't done that piece of the Git setup. If I refresh, and if I go back to here, you can see now that I'm back to where I was before. I have this repository with one commit. Here's my commit, my initial commit that I created. Okay, cool. Let's, in preparation for everything, let's make another one for Visual Studio. So I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to go back to plus. I'm going to go new repository. Let's make another repository, another one. So this will be your second one, or third one maybe. Instead of Visual VS Code, I'll say VS 2015, or 2013 in your case. It's another repository. I got another one. There we go. Oh, I made a mistake. I made it under my Studiopolis account, not my Centennial College account. Let's delete it. Here's how you delete it again. Settings. Go down to danger zone. Delete this repository. Delete. I've shown it to you twice, so you know how to delete repositories now, right? That was my error. Let's go back to new repository. And I'm going to choose Centennial College this time to do it right. And then create repository. There we go. All I've done when I have these other things, you see my name and a couple of other things, I've created organizations which you can do for free with Git. That's all I've done. And so I've got another organization I call Centennial College. Okay, so I've got another set of stuff here waiting for me to be ready with Visual Studio 2015. Let's fix it for 2015, 2013. How do I do that? Well, here's what I'm going to do to make it quick, right? I want to get my files on here, right? But I want to start a new project from scratch. So I can show you the from scratch way of doing it. But I don't want to waste a lot of time. So how do I do that? Well, I already have my repository, right, online. I'm going to grab my repository, download it as a zip file, unzip it, and use that thing as my new folder. How do I do that? And in Visual Studio, it's not easy, it's not hard. Let's try this out. I'm going to close this solution for a second. I want to show you this to you. From scratch, right? Making it from scratch is what I'm talking about here. I'll say File, New, make a new project, so I can show you this from the get-go. And I'm going to choose my new project is going to be a web project under Visual C#, under ASP.NET Web Application. And I'm going to call this thing COMP125, Lesson 1. We'll call this the VS 2015, right? So we know that it's named the same thing as my repository, right? Now look what I have here. I'm going to leave create new Git repository checked in this case, okay? I'm not going to do it later. I'm going to do it right from the beginning. You know, and that's how you should do it. Right from the beginning, you should kind of put in your repository. And I'm going to press OK. When I do that, it's going to give me this empty application. I don't want web forms. I want empty. And press OK. This is the second time you will have seen it, right? But there's nothing in here. It's going to be empty. And I want to kind of get the rest of my stuff, right? So I'll wait for that to be created. But one thing I can do with my virtualization here is I can kind of do one of these. I can kind of go to my desktop. And I can go to my COMP125 right here. And here's my lesson 1. And I can copy this whole folder. And I can go back out to over here into my Windows folder. I'll wait till that sets up. And I'll kind of paste it in here, right? So I'll say paste, and it'll just grab my folder. And eventually it'll give me everything I need here. See how it's like cycling right now. I'll leave that to do what it's supposed to do, and I'll go back up here. So right now I have an empty package, but I want to connect it. Notice that in Visual Studio, there's no connection to anything right now. But if I look at my Team Explorer on the bottom right here, notice how my Team Explorer, right, it says offline. It should show the name of your project, COMP125 Lesson 1 VS 2015 on the top. If it doesn't, typically if you're using Visual Studio 2015, then you don't got the right repository set up. Okay, cool. Here's my solution. It's empty, but I want to kind of sync this with my new repository container up online. And I just downloaded everything that I had from before here in my COMP125 folder. Well, the beautiful thing about Windows and Visual Studio, eventually when it runs, right, is you can drag and drop from here into Visual Studio too, right? So here's my folder. I'll bring up Visual Studio for a second, and I'm going to kind of do one of these, right, for a second here. And what I want to do with this is I want to grab my assets, my content, my scripts, all this stuff, even my index.html. I want to drag and drop it in here, right? That's what I want to kind of do. Here's my index.html. right? Notice that it's not part of my folder structure yet because I need to drag my index.html on top of my my file. So there's my index.html. I'm just dragging and dropping here. Same thing with assets. I can do the same thing with all these things. So I can build up my Visual Studio by dragging and dropping. And I'm sorry, I'm limited in space here because I'm using my, I have a compressed desktop because of the projector. But you can do this if you have a regular machine here. You can do this. So I can rebuild. I didn't do that. I didn't work the last one. You can rebuild your project just like this, right? Well, now that I have all this, right, you can see that I have everything I need, right? I should be able to run it locally and make it work just like I do. You know, it's just the same project. All I've done is drag and drop it. I'm showing you this thing for people who want to drag it, to kind of download my code, and they want to use it in Visual Studio, but it's not laid out like Visual Studio should be laid out, and it's not going to work for you. And you're like, Tom, I can't use your code because you're using VS Code, and it's up on GitHub. How do I do it? Well, this is the way. Like drag and drop everything and recreate your project if you want to, or you can open up an existing project. That's also good too. But if you notice, once it runs, just to prove to you that it's running, it's going to run this hello world thing because my index.html is there, my CSS files, my JavaScript files, all of them are there, so they can totally work. And one day, when this thing runs, let's take a look at Visual Studio for a second and take a look at what my Team Explorer says, right? My Team Explorer, if I look at changes, and for you it's going to be this way too, right? If I look at changes, I can see that there's a bunch of changes here, right? These are all going to have something similar like this. You go to Team Explorer, click the Home button on Visual Studio 2015, and click Changes. Underneath there, you should see all this stuff. If you've never set up your GitHub before, you also have to go back into Home and then go to Settings. Under Settings, you got to click on Global Settings, and you got to put in your name and your email and all that stuff because it doesn't know who you are. If it doesn't know this stuff, then Visual Studio 2013, 2015 won't be able to connect to GitHub. Okay? You got to set it up. Then the next thing is you go back to Changes, you put in a commit like this. Here's my initial commit, and click Commit All. So these are all my changes that I'm adding in, right, to my initial commit. Now let me see what the page looks like. There's my hello world. So all that stuff is running properly. No problem. Let me stop debugging here. Now I want to set up my remote. How do I set up my remote with Microsoft? Because I did it with Visual Studio Code. How do I do it with Microsoft? Well, under my Team Explorer, I can go to Home, and I can click on Sync. And under Sync, for you guys, there's going to be one option, right? I'll wait till there it is. For me, because I'm using 2015, I have a couple of options. I have Publish to GitHub directly. I don't want to do that here because you may only have 2013. Publish to remote repository. Yours is going to just show this link that shows you this, a little yellow link here in 2013, right? This is where you put in the GitHub URL. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I go back up to GitHub, I go to GitHub, Centennial College. I go up to GitHub and do that, and if I look at my VS 2015, right? Come on. Chug, my virtual machine, right? Even with 16 gigs of RAM, doesn't matter. You can see that here I got these command right here, right? This little URI. I need to copy this. I need to go back to Visual Studio 2015 or 2013 and paste it. And now I have my URL and click Publish. Now, if you're set up properly, it's going to connect and push everything to GitHub. If you're not, if you've connected for the first time, it's going to ask you for your username and password. It's going to say, please put in my username and password. When you put it in, it's going to, that's the username and password for your GitHub, by the way. It's going to connect you up with GitHub, and it's going to push everything up to GitHub, okay? Now, if I look at my repository, you can see that there is something that looks a little different. Here's something. Take a look. This looks a little different, right, than what I saw before. I have my repository, my folder in here, and my Centennial College shows me all my repositories. Here's one of them, and we're good to go so far. Cool. So here's my Visual Studio, and this is a copy of my stuff. But I'll tell you right now, we're going to have problems running this in a regular server. Why? Why am I going to have problems running this in a regular server? If I was going to upload this to your school server right now, here, locally at Centennial College, why would this be a problem if you load this up? There's no index. This right here, there's no index.html right here. Remember, index.html, index.html, default.html, default.html has to be in the root of your folder. This is the root. I don't see an index.html here. It's inside here, right? So if you were going to upload this to your school server, you have to take the inner folder, COMP125, Lesson 1, Visual Studio 2015, that was created by Visual Studio, and upload that one to the server. Otherwise, it won't work. Okay, just letting you know. But on the other repository, just letting you know, with VS Code, I don't have that problem. It is everything I need. Here's my index.html, right? How do I connect this to Azure? Let's do it. So I have an Azure account. This is the important part that you guys missed. Here's my portal.azure.com, right? Portal.azure.com. Well, if I spell properly, let's go back to my Mac side. It's a little faster. So here's, I'll refresh this one so you can see that this is it's already been there, right? So I'll go to portal.azure.com. And when I go to portal.azure.com, it allows me to log in. Now, if you've set up Azure correctly, this is what you're going to see. If you haven't set up Azure correctly, remember, I'm going to give you an option to put it up on the school server instead of Azure tonight, right? Because I said, you know, you can't do it. I understand if you aren't able to set it up. If you're a real developer, figure it out. I'll challenge you, right? If you're not a real developer, then we'll see you next week, right? And we'll do it together until you become a real developer. Okay. Let's take a look at this. So I want to click on this plus button. Actually, what it should look like is like this for you, right? I want to click plus for new, right? When I click new, I'm going to go to new web and mobile. New web and mobile, right? That's the one I want. Now I want a new web app. That's what I want, a new web app. Don't worry, this is all being recorded, ladies and gentlemen, so you don't have to panic, right? When I go to my new web app, it's going to ask me for a unique name for my container. This name has to be available around the world. It can't be the same as any other name anywhere in the world, this name that I'm going to make right now. And of course, I'm going to use something like this. Comp, all lowercase, COMP125 dash summer 2016 to make it unique. Okay, so that's where it is. And no, my subscription says pay as you go. If you have pay as you go on your subscription, you're doing it wrong. Okay, I'm not a student, I'm a professor. Mine's pay as you go. Yours you should say DreamSpark. If yours doesn't say DreamSpark here, something's wrong. Just letting you know. Okay. Resource group. It's going to say, what resource group do you want? Do you want a new resource group or one that I've created? You can create a new resource group. Let's make one together. I'm going to say new group. Right. I can also choose a resource group that I've created from before. I've chosen East US. Right. So I can choose a name for the new resource group. Let's make a new resource group. Call it Comp. I'll make a COMP125 resource group. Okay. There we go. My new resource group name. All right. And my app service area is important, right? This app service area. I want to choose anything else other than East Asia or something like that. I want to choose like, you know, my East US or something in the US. Please don't choose East Asia. It'll eat your credits. Okay. South Central US. Anything in the US is okay. But if I want to do something new, I'm going to create new here. And I can choose a new place. Look at how it says pricing tier is standard. You don't want pricing tier standard. You want pricing tier free. Okay. So I'm going to choose East US, right? And I'm going to choose my pricing tier is going to be free. If I choose a standard pricing tier like this, I'm going to be charged for it. So please don't choose a standard pricing tier like this. Okay. If it says standard tier, it's wrong. You got to choose one that's free, right? Whether it's East US 2 or whatever. You cannot choose one like this. If you choose one of these, I wonder if there's another one on here. There isn't in my case, but in yours, it's got to be free. Okay, let me cancel that. So I'm going to choose one that already exists, like this default storage East US, right? And notice when I click onto this, right, my default storage space, right? I don't want this pricing tier to be standard. If it says standard, it's wrong. Let me show that again. Go back to web app. Right? So let's just cancel out of this whole thing, okay? I want to try it again so that way you don't get messed up. So here's web app, right? This is not free. This is a S1 standard. If you see S1 standard, that's bad, right? You want the free version, right? So let's cancel out of here. I'm going to cancel out this whole thing and do it again, all right? Portal.azure.com. So you can see it. So I don't want you guys to be charged, that's all. Right? I want you guys to have a free thing. Don't worry about me, right? So I click new. And when I click new, if you notice, Azure likes to lag a little bit like this. That's okay. Give it a second. I want to click on web and mobile. This is what I want to click. And then from there, I want to go web app if you haven't done this already. Okay. I want to create a unique name, COMP125. It's got to be unique for me. Summer 2016, and then lesson 1. If it's not unique, if you guys have made it already, then it won't work for me. That's okay. I want to use my default East-US service plan, right? And I'm going to click. I'm going to pin my thing to dashboard. That's another thing I want to click. Pin my option to dashboard and click create. Oh yeah, my service plan. I guess I should probably create my default East-US service plan. There we go. Okay, create. Here we go. So if I click create, it's creating it's doing its deployment dance here. Take a look. Here's my deployment dance. Right? It's spinning, it's spinning, it's spinning. Right? You have to wait till this is done for the container to be finished. If this little dance here isn't finished, right? Then your container is not ready. Okay. Oh, there it is. Look, it succeeded. Let me take a look over here. Here's the next piece. So I've got Azure, but it's empty. This link has nothing on it, right? Because this link is just an empty container. I want you to think of it like that. That's all I've made. Okay, if I scroll down here to where it says deployment, and you have to wait for a second. If I scroll down to the right where it says deployment or publishing, take a look where it says deployment source. Are you guys watching? Because you guys need this for your lab. Here's deployment source. I need to choose configure source, GitHub. Then it's going to do its dance. It's going to say, who are you coming in as? I'm coming in as Centennial College, right? That's my account, my organization I'm using, right? Yeah. And then it's because it's reading my GitHub account. You have to authorize yourself for GitHub for the very first time. And then I go to choose project, and I'm going to choose COMP125 Lesson 1 VS Code, not this one. This one is for Visual Studio. Okay, it's a different way of doing some things with that one. Click. Cool. It's my master branch. I'm not going to configure a performance test, and I'm going to click OK. Now, what this is going to do when this does this new deployment, it's going to look at GitHub and push it to Visual Studio. And this is the beauty of this, ladies and gentlemen. Every time I change GitHub, it changes my website that's live. It's called continuous deployment. Right? So every time I change my GitHub, my stuff on GitHub, I do a new commit, my website's automatically changed. And that's what I want to get you guys to do. Yes? No. Yeah. Once you do it this way, then once you just hook up with GitHub, Azure will be automatically updated. It'll take a second or so. Now, see how it's not done yet? See how it's fetching from GitHub right now? See how this deployment dance is working? You have to wait for a bit. You have to be actually patient. I know it's a difficult concept, patience, but you really need it with Microsoft. And see how I got this check mark? This is good. This means that it's working. Now let's test it. If I click on this link here and take a look what it is, COMP125, you do it. COMP125 S2016-lesson1.azurewebsites.net. If I click onto it, and if everything went well, I should get a hello world, and you should get it too. All right, this is my link that's working around the world right now. Okay, it's live. Why this as opposed to your school server? Because this is more professional, right? I want you to be able to do continuous deployment from GitHub to Azure to the cloud. You're going to be using a cloud service that's free for you as students to produce something. Yes. Pay as you go is the way I did it. But I recommend using that school server or Heroku, something else. If you can't do it for free, somehow you can't make it work, we're going to make, well, I'm not going to help you, but if you can't make it work, please, I need a live link for your stuff because every assignment is going to be live, okay? All your assignments need to be live for you to get full marks, somehow. Okay, well, here's something that's interesting. It also has deployment credentials, if you look at your actual site. And I could set up things with FTP here, and if you Google it, how to set up to FTP to my to Azure, I could do it here the same way. I'm not going to do that. Okay, cool. Let's go back to Visual Studio, right? So I got my Visual Studio deployment here, right? And I'll come back here in a second. I'll say portal.azure.com, and I'll do it here on the Windows side, right? And I want to publish this whole thing. I want to publish this whole thing to Azure. How do I do it, right? Well, if I right-click on my solution, right? One day when it listens, I love how slow it is. I'll right-click on my solution, I said. And if you look down here, I can build my solution. I can do all kinds of stuff here, right? So it's not in here that you're going to do it. What about on my project? So here's my project. I'm going to right-click on my project. Remember, because the solution isn't actually the one that I want to use, right? So here's my project. I can click Publish. It's right here inside my solution, right? I can publish directly to Azure from here. If I click Publish, and here, if you've got everything set up properly with Visual Studio 2013, 2015, I could do something like this, where I can choose Azure. I can choose my subscription type if I'm logged in, right? It says re-enter my credentials. I'll re-enter my credentials another day. But you could always use this way. Actually, I'll do it now. Won't matter. It'll just ask me to use my token, which will change anyway, because I use two-tier authentication, right? Like every smart person should. Not to say that I'm smarter than anybody else, but I just want to be safe. So here's my two-tier authentication. I'm using my app. And submit. So I'm signing back into Azure. Let's give me a second to do that with my Microsoft account. And I'm linking, what I'm doing is I'm linking Azure to Visual Studio 2015. And then I'll have a direct link. So I can directly create my application right from Visual Studio. I'll let that do its dance, and I'll come back in a second. Okay, cool. So what about if I want to do the other one? So I've got two repositories. I got my Microsoft repository, right, for Visual Studio 2015. I got my VS Code one. Let's do another one online. I won't do it this way for a second. I'll let this do its dance. But I'll do the other one here on the Mac, okay? Because I got two repositories here, right? So I want to go back to new. Here's Microsoft Visual Studio 2015 example, okay? Here's new. And I want to click down into, I want to show you how this works, web and mobile, right? When I click web app, it's just like we did last time. And I'm going to click on this other one. I'm going to say COMP125, summer 2016, lesson 1. And then it's going to be VS 2015. So I know that it's my Visual Studio version, right? And pay as you go, my resource is going to be my default East US resource. And I'm going to click on pin to dashboard and create. And it's going to make another container for me, another one, right? Which is really the key here, guys, right? I don't want to make the same container. You can't have the same one. These are just different containers. They're empty containers up online on Azure. They don't have anything inside them yet. Right? I got to fill them with something. And there's two ways to do it. I can do it with FTP, like it shows you right here. So here's my FTP credentials. Or I could use the continuous deployment from GitHub, like this. Here's my deployment source. I'll show you it again. Now it's going to be different here, and it may fail. I'll show you how it fails. Here's GitHub. And once it connects to GitHub, I'll choose Centennial College. I'm almost timing out here. Here's Centennial College. And under Centennial College, I'm going to choose which project. It's going to be the VS 2015 one, this one. That's for Visual Studio 2015 without index.html exposed. So we think there's going to be a problem. There should be a problem here, right? And I'm going to click OK. So it's going to go out to GitHub, grab my Visual Studio 2015 repo that I made that doesn't have index.html exposed, and do the deployment dance by copying things from GitHub into Azure. That's what it's supposed to do. Let's give it a sec to do that thing. It's doing it right now. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, let's go back to here. Hey, I'm logged in. Notice how here in Visual Studio 2015, I could choose pay-as-you-go or your DreamSpark account. You could do it right here. I could select a resource group if I wanted to, like for my default East US location, right? So I want to choose this one. So here's my default. This is the stuff that's in my resource group. Notice that when I pull this into my resource group, I could choose the type of resource I want, right? And this is bad because see how it's not giving me exactly what I want. What it should be doing is in my resource group, it should add in default. If I put a default, my default resource group is what I want. My default East US storage, this one. I could choose new, right? If I choose new, it's going to make a new resource group. And it's going to give me my own little path. Here's my web app name, right? It's going to make its own web app name. And it's going to have the default resource group and so on. I could do that. And then literally I just click create and it's done with Visual Studio 2015. 2013, a little bit more challenge. You're going to have challenge. It won't be like this. 2015 is much easier. Let's wait and see what happens with this one. Did it deploy? It's a check mark. Hold on. With Visual Studio 2015, right? Without index.html exposed. Does it work? Let's see. So I'm going to go here, and it's cycling. And hey, even without the index.html exposed, it still works. Yeah, it will. This isn't with, I didn't do it with Visual Studio. I did it right from my GitHub repository, which is the one that I created with Visual Studio 2015. So because it recognizes that it's a solution for Microsoft, it deploys it anyway. It deploys it anyway. I caution you, however, that this may not always be the case. But sometimes you'll get a unauthorized or something like that. That's why I recommend Visual Studio Code. There's less problems. If you can't make it work, though, it's okay. Yes?
Is it actually the same name or
yeah, same name.
Like this one.
You can't make it the same name. You got to make it different. It's got to be unique. If it's not the unique name, it won't work. Any questions before we depart? Yes. What's your question? Won't work. Here's why it won't work. It won't work because in your command prompt, here's my command prompt on the Mac, right? On Windows, it looks like, let me just cancel this out because I don't want to do this right now. On Windows, we'll do another one like this later. If I pull this up for a second, here's Windows. If I type in Git on my Windows, it works. The reason why it doesn't work on yours is because Advanced System Settings. If I go Advanced System Settings, here's Advanced System Settings in your control panel, right? In your control panel, you get a monkey with, I'll be honest with you, you get a monkey with the environment variables in Windows, right? For Git to be available, right? Because in Windows, in the environment variables, it tells you there's two paths. There's a path up here and a path down here. Here's your second path. Those two paths have to be configured. Let me just double click on the path so I can show you. Oops. Try that again. I meant double click on the path. If you double click on the path in Windows 10 or Windows 7, it'll give you a long list of stuff. And what I want you to do is on the bottom, well, that's wrong. Look at that program. that must be causing me an issue. Get rid of that thing, right? Delete. What it should be doing is it should be giving you a list of programs that are available to you on command prompt, right? Unfortunately for you, because the machine in front of you or your laptop hasn't been configured for this, for the environment variables, it won't be available. So the quick fix is download Git Bash through your desktop tool. So desktop tool, I'll tell you something. If you downloaded Git Bash for desktop.github.com, you'll get a little desktop tool called Git Bash. And then you can't do what I did with Visual Studio Code. You have to go to Git Bash first. Like if I have Git Bash here, I would show you. I do not. But on the desktop, you might have something like this Git shell. See this Git shell? And what you need to do when this finally opens, and sorry that I'm timing out here. I know you guys got to get to other classes. So that's okay. Come on. Double clicking twice is not going to help. All right. If I do this in Git shell, if I do CD, it's doing its little dance too here locally for me. And it never used to be listed like this until I ran Visual Studio. Sorry, until I ran Windows 10. Windows 7, it was jumping. Windows 10, it's crawling, right? Anyways, I'll wait till this comes up. But what you do is you go to your local window here. Okay, so let's type it in. So there's my local repository. I want to go CD space, and in here in Visual Studio, right, or in VS Code, you have to go to that repository. So let's say if I was going to run Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio, let's do Visual Studio for a second. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to expose this thing in File Explorer. Here it is. Here's File Explorer. Chug, 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 Tom. One day, and then what you do is you drag and drop your File Explorer into here, and it'll actually, you can use Git by pointing at the right folder, like, sorry for my delay. Come on. This. I drag and drop. Look, it accepts it. And when I do that, press Enter, I can use Git, no problem. And I can use Git on my repository, right? This is my folder from Windows, from Microsoft, right? And you can use all your Git commands right from here, okay? Worst case scenario, do it this way with Git Bash, okay? If you can't make your Git work on your command prompt. But the right way to do it is through your environment variables. You got to fix the environment variables. Google it if you're a developer. All right? If you're not a developer, we'll fix it next week. Okay? Good luck. Guys, I'm timed out and you guys are timing out. If you have any questions, I'll wait outside for you guys, or you can meet with me another time. See you next week. And good luck with your submission tonight. Just write the links in a text file. That's all I need you to do. Okay? Thank you. Yes. Let me just stop. This is going to be recorded.